But moving on, venture capital firm Yali Capital today announced its launch with an 810 crore rupee fund, including a 310 crore rupee green shoe option. The fund is co-founded by Ganapathy Subramaniam, former CEO of Cosmic Circuits, and Mathew Cyriac, the executive chairman of Florentry. My colleague Ritu Singh caught up with the founding partners in Bengaluru today for more on their plans for investment. Take a look.
Venture capital firm Yali Capital has announced its launch with the 810 crore rupee fund, which is going to back deep tech startups in India across chip designing, artificial intelligence, robotics, and so on. It has already identified investments in 4 deep tech companies in India and expects to close them by the September quarter of this year. For more on the company's investment thesis and their plans for investment in the sector, I have with me the 2 founding partners of Yali Capital, Mr. Ganapathy Subramaniam and Mr. Mathew Cyriac. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time here on CNBC-TV18 and for speaking with us. Mr. Subramaniam, if I'll start with you, given that Yali Capital is just coming into the market, this is your first ever fund. Tell us briefly about Yali and how soon do you expect to close this 810 crore rupees that you target for the deep tech sector?
So Yali, as you rightly said, is the first, it's a deep tech fund focused on India as a geography, and we are planning for 810 crores, including our green shoe. And we expect, the first launch is today, and we expect the fund to close within 3 to 6 months of the first launch.
Okay, and could you tell us a bit more about who you're raising these funds from, and generally a picture of what you plan to do thereon?
So the 50% of the money we expect to come from individuals, and the other 50 from large corporations, family offices, and fund of funds. So in terms of individuals, we have been very lucky to collect strong technical executives, entrepreneurs globally. That's from India, Bay Area, Southern California, and corporations globally, especially the semiconductor firms, would be the limited partners in this fund.
All right. Mr. Cyriac, if we could get more specific on, how many startups are you looking to invest in with this 810 crores when you do complete raising it, and what's the sort of average check size you'd be writing them?
Sure. I think our idea is to invest maybe 15 companies, and the way we approach this is we will do kind of fund them very early on, maybe 10 companies. The average check says there could be, let's say, $2 million, let's say 15 to 18 crores. The companies that do well from there, we want to ensure that we are there to support them through their life cycle, at least early part of the life cycle. So the second checks for those companies, let's say maybe 5 of them, could be in the 8500 kind of level, 100 crores level. So the idea is to kind of see them through a reasonably, kind of get them reached to a go-to-market stage. And obviously, we will continue to support them in fundraising going forward as well. All
right. But you've already identified 4 companies in the deep tech space. You haven't made their names public, but anything you could tell us about them?
The first one that could close near term is a cancer genomic precision healthcare business. We expect to sign that deal in the next few days. The second business is an electro-optics company. Third business is a robotics business. Which we are co-investing with another fund like us. And the fourth one is actually we are incubating a business in the chip design area where we have working with a group of very talented global leaders from some of the best companies in that industry. So the idea is to kind of bring that team together. That may take a little bit more time, but we expect to close all these deals before end of September.
So we want to understand from you, from a Yali Capital point of view, what is your investment thesis? What are you looking at?
So our investment thesis is deep tech, and what we call as deep tech is any startup that is backed by technology as a moat. That's the first distinction. It's not that we are saying that you have to do a fundamental discovery of a molecule. But any startup that is backed by technology is the company that interests us. Very large fraction of the fund we expect to go to chip design. Apart from that, I strongly believe India is very good in robotics. And India is very good in, for example, smart manufacturing. AI and Gen AI, we have some companies coming up, but we believe that will be many such companies, good companies will come up in India in future.
But for the investors that are putting money into the fund, what kind of returns are you promising or expecting?
So I think, this is, as you rightly pointed out, this is a little bit of a longer horizon investment. the thesis, and these companies take time to build. And also it's inherently, because of the technology risk, etc. There is both the maturity risk and the technology risk. So we would like to compensate our investors for that. So when we look at investing in these companies, we are expecting a 5 times, multiple of invested capital, 5+.
Okay.
Not that all of them would do that, but that's what we are shooting for. Our kind of underwriting and our kind of deal selection would be focused on that. And one of the things that we would also do is we would very opportunistically, maybe 1 or 2 companies, and one we have already identified, which will have a little earlier exit so that the investors see some money coming back.
To give them some confidence.
Some confidence. So one of the deals that we are talking about, which is in the final phase, is potentially a pre-IPO. It's too early to call that, but even if it is not going to take more than 2-3 years for us to have an exit.
What would the deployment cycle look like?
So deployment cycle, my sense is it will take us 3 years to deploy the full capital.
The government came out with the draft national deep tech startup policy. The budget's around the corner. So I'm just wondering, from an investor point of view, from the ease of doing business, from a policy perspective, what would you like to see from the government, to sort of resolve some of the challenges related with the deep tech sector in India?
So we need a lot of support from government. If you take something like a chip design, government has done extremely well, I would say, in terms of fab policy. They have a chip design, something called D2I, they have a PLI, and they also have C2S. There are multiple programs the government has put in place. Lots of emphasis has to go into the design. While manufacturing is very important, equally important is India's strength, which is intellectual property, right? I mean, we are very good designers. So, I mean, that doesn't require a huge amount of infrastructure. So I think government should back the design companies equally as manufacturing companies. Even I would say should emphasize more on the design portion of the deep tech.
So that's Yali's bid to help deep tech startups in India. But moving on, Gujarat-based